Hey, I'm TheLoopyAlchemist, and today I'm going to be doing a two-part series about great crises in Tamriel. Now this is going to be split into two episodes, this one dealing with what historically has Tamriel's worst crisis been, and the second one dealing with what's the next great crisis to hit Tamriel going to be, and along with that, the next great crisis is presumably going to be the subject of the plotline for The Elder Scrolls 6. Okay, now that I've done enough spelling out for people to still get confused and post hate comments, telling me that there's not going to be any more DLC for Skyrim. Yes, those videos were released before they made the announcement. I get it. You can stop posting that. We are going to get right into it. So, by crisis, I'm going to divvy it up into three main things. Plagues, war, and the Daedric princes going nuts and creating all manner of havoc. And there's kind of one exception to that I'll talk a bit later as well. So, in terms of plagues, we've got the Thracian plague and the Nahatan flu. I've called it the Kanahatan flu as well, but since people do not like my pronunciation, I'm just going to use the two right there. So the Thracian plague, very early on in Tamriel's history, and we've got basically no credible sources on it. Some say it's half of the Iliac Bay dying off, which generally refers to High Rock and Hammerfall, or at least parts of it, and some saying half of Tamriel's entire population died off. Now, that of course is quite the claim, and for anyone who's not familiar with the Thracian Plague, I made an entire episode about it in the lore series, but basically these necromancer slug things from Thras, the Coral Kingdom. It's a bunch of volcanic islands sort of way off the coast of Tamriel. Send in a plague and it does what plagues do. Disease kills people, so that's bad. But then we also have the Nahatan flu later on, which is around it's supposed to have originated in Black Marsh by angry Argonian shaman or something, and it kills off a lot of people, but nowhere near the reported deaths we have in the Thracian plague, though it is stated to have killed off the Kothringi. Now, they're a race of men with metallic skin who ended up sailing off, tried to find a new place to live, actually went over to Hammerfell, but they got turned back, and long story short, no one knows where they are today. The entire bit about them getting turned back at Hammerfell, they've got a festival celebrating that in Hammerfell today, but that's neither here nor there. So anyways, we think they're extinct now, but who knows, they could have gone to Black Harbor or Roscrea, or one of the other tiny islands, or maybe even another continent. Either way, might come back again at some point, but either way, it's the second time I've said that. Sorry for recycling my words, but you get the idea. Bad, but I wouldn't really call it quite Tamriel's worst crisis. And now we've got wars. Of course, no shortage of those in Tamriel. There's the three Akviri invasions, but I wouldn't really call them the worst crisis either, the first one being basically a pirate raid on High Rock, even though sources make it sound big, but again, little to no credible information, and that's what it appears to have been. The second one, they come through Skyrim, wreak havoc, build Cloud Ruler Temple, which that's either the one in Skyrim or the one in Cyrodiil. If it's the one in Cyrodiil, I apologize. With all these terms, I get confused sometimes too, so feel free to correct me in the comments about that. But anyways, they're the ones who end up getting defeated by the Emperor Reman and end up forming the Blades. So clearly not a massive, greatest crisis there. The third one, being easily the most serious, is an extended raid through Morrowind, Skyrim, I believe, Windhelm. I always get Windhelm and Winterhold confused, but Windhelm, I believe it was actually sacked during that. That's just sort of off the top of my head, maybe getting details confused here, but either way, it's bad, and it's actually what leads to the creation of the Ebonheart Pact in The Elder Scrolls Online, with Black Marsh, Morrowind, and Skyrim actually aligning to repel that invasion. So still very serious, but I wouldn't call it the biggest war on Tamriel, even though we actually have Akvir, a second continent, invading it. My pick for the worst war would actually be the Tiber Wars. Now, of course, we look back at this at sort of the rise of the great era of basically the golden age of Tamriel when it's fully united, but it was a pretty bloody thing to actually get Tamriel together. We've got extensive fighting in Hammerfell and High Rock, Morrowind as well. Elsewhere was extremely bloody, and we don't exactly know how much the Numidium was used to take down Valenwood and the Somerset Isles. I mean, I even speculated that it was just used as a terror tactic, but man, if that thing was used, it would have been pretty awful. And this is kind of the one I mentioned that doesn't really fall into any of the categories, but it would be Jagar Thorn. You know, plotline of Arena ends up impersonating Uriel Septim the Seventh and creating all manner of chaos, so that was, again, extremely bad, but I wouldn't call it, like, the greatest crisis. So the ones I'm going to say are the greatest crises, whatever the plural of that word is, would of course be the Daedra going nuts. Now, we've got two examples of this. We've got the Soul Burst, the events of the Elder Scrolls Online, and the Oblivion Crisis. Now, these two are just insanely ugly, nasty, bad crises of a situation. Speaking of nasty and bad, my phrasing of that last sentence would probably fall into there, but I'd say it's the Soul Burst because we've got the Daedra going nuts and all of Tamriel at each other's throats. So starting off with the Oblivion Crisis, it's bad, it's really bad. I'm pretty sure you guys are all familiar with the events of the game Oblivion, but at any rate, the Cult of the Mythic Dawn ends up assassinating Uriel Septim the Seventh, and because the Dragonfires go out, Mehrunes Dagon ends up sending all of his minions to Tamriel, and sorry if I was kind of talking at a irregular pace, my chair was squeaking, and it seems like it's going to fall apart, but I'm going to stick it through this for you guys. So anyways, Tamriel under siege on all corners from the Daedra, but it's at least a united empire fighting it. In the Soul Burst, the Elder Scrolls Online, they're having to fight off a Daedric invasion, but they're at each other's throats at the same time. So, for that, I'm saying it's getting the TheLoopyAlchemist award of worst situation in Tamriel's history is the Elder Scrolls Online. Now, of course, with Crisis, there's opportunity, so risks and rewards, but at any rate, that's my pick. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Next time, I'll be talking about what I think the next great crisis Tamriel is going to face is going to be. See ya!